About a month ago, I went to the annual Honk Festival in Somerville in Davis Square. Love Honk. Honk has been going on for a number of years now, and it's a festival of street bands, street marching bands from all over the country. They have every kind of street band with horns and saxes and drums, everything you can imagine. But the only kind of marching band they don't have are the kind you see at the Rose Bowl parade and at halftime shows. But every other configuration of a marching band on the street, they got it. It's fun. I was hanging out with my son and one of my minister buddies and his son and another minister buddy of ours. And we were behind Davis Square in one of the parks, standing behind a band on a stage area while they played. And they were having fun and funky where people were dancing. You don't think of people dancing to a marching band, but this is Honk. It's great. And we're talking, as we tend to do, about the latest tweets driving us nuts and the awfulness of the natural disasters that were happening that time a month ago. And we were going on and on, usually, about all the stuff you complain to each other about, like that. And then my buddy raises his hand and says, "Look." And one of the drummers in the band had been sideways to us, and now his back was to us. And on his back, he had pinned what looked like a piece of bed sheet written in black marker. It said, "A lot of things are actually okay in the world." My son mumbles, "Good to remember." In troubling times, it can be so easy to lose sight of what's good and right and hopeful and helpful. Blessing tends to get lost in choruses of curses and cursing. Blessing can be too easily dismissed. Blessing is dismissed as rainbows and unicorns and unrealistic hopes and fantasy dreams, or the everyday little tiny thing that whatever happens to you is the great gift of a benevolent deity. But we don't need deities involved to be blessed or to bless. We can bless each other. The world can bless us in its natural beauty. We can bless the world. Blessing is a powerful spiritual practice, awareness, and gift. For a blessing is a gift. It usually comes unsought, unearned. Blessing is also an acceptance, an approval, a recognition, a welcoming, an inclusion, a recognition. Blessing is giving love and giving yourself to love. Letting yourself love. Blessing is wonder. I learned the art of blessing first from my mom. When I was in grade school, every year, first grade to sixth grade, my mom would invite my entire class to the house for lunch and to the end of the school day. She made all kinds of food. She had all kinds of games set out. It was wonderful. The teachers loved it. My friends loved it. I didn't really think too much of it. It was just something my mom did every year. It became part of going to school for me. What day are we going to have the class over this year? I only have been to one high school reunion. A couple years ago, I went to my 30th high school reunion. Every person who I graduated with, who had been in one of my classes, grade 1 to 6, guess what was the first thing they said to me? "I remember going to your house and your mom putting on that day for us after school." And that was fairly powerful. I really hadn't thought much about my mom doing that till a couple of years ago at my 30th high school reunion, when it seemed to be the thing everyone who went to that elementary school who had been in one of my classes mentioned to me. My mom did that because that was something she could do. She took a day off from work to do that. She was a full-time single mom not making a lot of money. And she used the day off, a sick day, a personal day, whatever she had to do. She took a day off from work every year to do that. Every year, so she could bless me and my classmates. And it was obviously a bit more of a blessing than I realized at the time. My friends let me know so decades later. Being a single mom, my mom did not have a lot of money. And one year, I was in grade school, but closer to 6th grade than 1st grade. I saw her writing out checks and putting them in envelopes and addressing them to people and putting the return address as Santa Claus. When I got older, I would learn that every Christmas, my mom gave $100 that she didn't really have to someone she thought needed it from Santa Claus. When my mom told me about this, and she told me who she had given it to, one of our babysitters who had 3 kids of her own as a single mom, someone in a friend's family whose husband had been shot in Worcester, all these people that she had given money she really didn't have to at Christmas, and blessing them. My dad was also a source of blessing in different ways than my mom. He was a huge tennis fan. Big fan of tennis. He was a player. He was a coach. And he was a big fan of Arthur Ashe. If you don't know who Arthur Ashe was, he was the first African American to play for the United States in Davis Cup, and the first African American to win Wimbledon and to be ranked #1 in the world. This was in the late 60s to late 70s. Eventually, he got AIDS from a blood transfusion and died. Before he died, he wrote a book called Days of Grace. And one of the things I remember from that book is, he says, to be a success in life, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. My mom did this. She started where she was, used what she had, and did what she could for me and my classmates. Michael Cody did this. He started where he was, used what he had, a law degree, and did what he could. Naomi Shihab Nye did this. She started where she was, used what she could, her Arabic, and then did what she could with it. And reminds us that this still happens. This is the art of blessing. Not in the being blessed or asking for blessing, but in the gift of being the one who blesses. Blessing is a powerful gift. Those we bless are seen, recognized, accepted, included, loved. And all this kind of blessing still happens over and over again. Things are still okay in the world. One of our Unitarian beliefs is that there's no such thing as the Immaculate Conception of virtue. Or in English, good things don't just happen. At some level, we have to make them happen. Whether it's by our assent and changing our perspective, or by our getting involved and doing some work. The sunlight through the trees is a blessing, if you can see it as such, but you've got to be involved. The wild thing about blessing is you can make it happen. No matter how seemingly humble or insignificant, your gift is always something you can give, and you can always choose to give it. At any moment, at any time, you can choose to bless or curse the world. Jewish tradition has great lessons in blessing. When I read Eric Goldman's book, The Search for God, at Harvard, the year I started Harvard Divinity School, he talked about growing up in an Orthodox Jewish home. And he talked about his mom always saying to him, Ari, hon, do a mitzvah and get me the paper or make dinner or whatever. And he talks about there are 613 commandments or mitzvot in the Torah. And he said it's really a fascinating part of the Jewish tradition. There's a mitzvah, a blessing to say for when you wake up, for when you go to bed, for when you go to the bathroom. Blessed are you, Lord God of the universe, who gave us plumbing that makes us go to the bathroom. I mean, they're for everything. There's blessings for men to thank God that they're not women. And there's blessings for women to thank God they're not men. And of course, there's the blessing of the meals and the blessing of the Sabbath. It's interesting that in the doing of blessing, you form a religious practice or life. And that's one of the lessons we take from the Jewish tradition, that sometimes religious obligations aren't things which are put on us. They're things which we take on and make even the mundane things we do a blessing. You chose to bless the world this morning, right here in the service, when you took leaves and wrote your names on them. And you're going to bless the world again when you give them to our children after service. Neither you nor I know how important this will be to them. Children in our religious education program, they're not a program to be constructed. They're not a problem to be solved. They're people to bless, to include. Sometimes blessing isn't as easy as writing your name on a leaf. Sometimes we are blessed in ways that seem like difficulties at first. In his song Black Sheep, Martin Sexton says, I thank God Almighty for getting me out of my own way, for the things I didn't want to happen at that time. I think we've all experienced this, some trauma, some misfortune, some difficulty, some illness, or some just not getting what we hoped for or wanted. But even in those things, sometimes a door or a window opens, a perspective shifts. We see something we didn't see. We learn a lesson we didn't see coming. Something happens that wasn't something we wanted to celebrate at the time, but maybe sent us down another path that made all the difference. When I was in college, I was going to be a writer for Rolling Stone. I love music. I like to write. I was going to be a writer for Rolling Stone. I could not wait to get my first byline in Rolling Stone. I wrote I don't know how many hundreds of record reviews and theater reviews and movie reviews and interviewed local people from the arts. I even interviewed James Taylor and Livingston Taylor and Johnny Rotten and some other folks too. I had a little career going when I was in college. And when senior year came around, and we had an internship at our college at Rolling Stone. That was my internship. But when the time came around, I didn't even apply for it. I had started to work with Amnesty International as a student activist, and they offered me a full-year internship at their office in Boston, and I took it. And that has made all the difference. From there, I went to divinity school. From there, I became a theologian and a minister. And I wouldn't go back the other way for everything in the world. But at the time, I was astounding myself. I can't believe I didn't do that. Turns out my buddy who did take it, he didn't even become a writer for Rolling Stone. He became a lawyer. Blessings sometimes come in guises and disguises through hardship and conflict. But this doesn't say that suffering is good. Suffering is not good, nor is it redemptive. There are some things for which there's so much trauma and pain, they really can't be a blessing. Sometimes there's no lesson to learn other than survival. But it does remain true that often, even in difficulty, a blessing comes through it in some way, somehow, at some time. Blessing the world is a choice. You can see blessing all around you, and you can choose to make it happen. How do you do this? In a way that you can, where you are with what you have. Reverend Frederick Bushner is famously remembered for saying, "The place God calls you to is where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet." Each of us has a gladness, a joy, a blessing of our lives, of ourselves, that's part of who we are. It's us. And somewhere in our life and in the world around us, there's a way to put that to use that the world desperately needs. From your deep gladness, fill the need in the world around you that calls to that gladness and implores you and invites you to bless the world with it. Blessing the world can still happen because of you doing what you can, where you are with what you have. Your blessing the world may not make the history books or the news, and it may seem to you ordinary and uneventful. You're just doing what you have to do or doing what you do every day. But there's always a choice. You can choose to see blessing. You can choose to see yourself as an agent of blessing. You never know when you will be the source of that unexpected gift that meant so much to somebody that got them through. Found it very ironic and interesting that in the weekend I was going to start to preach about blessing for the month. I was given a gift Friday. We had a wedding rehearsal here on Saturday and a wedding here Saturday. The rehearsal was Friday night, and after the rehearsal I went to my office and there was a box wrapped in purple tissue paper. And I opened it up, and there was a wooden box that said Rev Tony on it and the date of the wedding, 11/4/17. I opened it up, and there was a mini burlap sack in it, and I had no idea what this was. I was baffled. I took it out. It was an incredibly expensive pocket watch. It's gorgeous. I just sat at my desk staring at it for about 5 minutes. What an amazing gift. That couple just left on my desk. And the more I sat and looked at it, the more I thought, wow, this has a lot of blessing in it. I thought that when this building was built, the men who sat in the pews, probably even the minister, probably all had one of those on them on Sunday morning. And all of a sudden I felt connected to our church through a gift from someone who's not a member of our church. And that cycle of blessing is just amazing. Look for the watch you will be given today. Look for the opportunity to give someone or the world such a gift. Choose to bless the world. Blessing still happens to you and through you. Go and bless the world, Holy Ones.